At 11:47 on a Thursday night, I came back to Northline Creative for the charger I had left beneath my desk, and found my boss carrying a pillow into the records room. Mara Ellison did not see me at first. She was barefoot, still wearing the charcoal trousers and white blouse she had worn to our client meeting, but her sleeves were rolled up, and her hair had fallen loose from its usual knot. In one hand she held a grocery bag, in the other, a folded blanket. The records room door started to close behind her. Then my shoe squeaked on the polished floor. Mara spun around, the blanket slipped, and for 3 silent seconds we stared at each other under the blue emergency lights. "Owen," she'd said, "why are you here?" I looked past her into the room. A narrow cot stood between filing cabinets. Beside it were 2 suitcases, a hot plate, a stack of clean towels, and a framed photograph of Mara with her late father. My boss did not stay late because she loved working alone. She stayed because she had nowhere else to go. Before I tell you what happened after that door opened, take a second to subscribe if you enjoy stories about the choices people make when pride and love collide. And tell me in the comments whether you would keep a secret like this, or refuse to let someone carry it alone. My name is Owen Carter. I was 30 years old then, a senior brand strategist living in Chicago, and I had been working at Northline for 8 months. Before that, I had spent 6 years at a large advertising firm where the clients were richer, the offices were shinier, and nobody remembered who stayed late as long as the presentation looked expensive by morning. My engagement had ended the previous year, partly because I worked too much, and partly because I had a habit of helping people before asking whether they wanted help. Since then, I had avoided office romance, emotional rescue missions, and any situation that required me to explain my feelings before coffee. Mara was 26, exactly 4 years younger than me and the youngest chief executive I had ever worked for. She had inherited Northline after her father died unexpectedly. Everyone assumed she stayed late because she was determined to prove she deserved his office. Standing outside that records room, I realized how little any of us knew. Mara bent, picked up the blanket, and placed it on the cot with controlled care. "You didn't see this," she said. "That's going to be difficult." Her eyes sharpened. In daylight, Mara's gaze could silence a room of senior executives. At midnight, without her jacket and heels, she looked smaller, but somehow more dangerous. "I mean it." "So do I." I stepped into the records room and closed the door behind me, not to trap her, but because the cleaning crew sometimes came through after midnight. The room smelled faintly of paper, instant soup, and the lavender detergent my mother used when I was a child. Mara folded her arms. "You came back for something, my charger. Then get it and go home." I glanced at the cot. "How long?" "That is not your business. How long have you been sleeping here?" Her jaw tightened. 6 weeks. The answer landed harder than I expected. 6 weeks meant she had been living in that narrow room while approving our vacation requests, correcting our budgets, and reminding the team not to skip lunch during deadline weeks. "Why?" I said, "It isn't your business. You also said I didn't see this. We're past the useful part of denial. For a moment, I thought she might fire me. Then something in her face gave way. Not weakness, exactly. Exhaustion. She reached into the grocery bag and removed a carton of milk, 2 apples, and a package of microwave oatmeal. Northline had a cash problem after my father died. We all knew the Mercer account left. That was only part of it. She moved a stack of folders from the cot and handed me the top one. Inside were loan notices, legalers, and a spreadsheet marked with red numbers. I did not understand every line, but I understood the total. "Your father borrowed against this company? He personally guaranteed a loan to expand the studio. He thought the new contracts would cover it. Then 2 clients left after he died, and the bank accelerated the payment schedule. Mara, I sold my condo in May. I sold my car in June. The proceeds covered payroll, health insurance, and the first settlement payment. I could have kept the condo and laid off 9 people. Her voice stayed calm, but her fingers pressed white against her sleeves. I chose not to. I looked again at the room. The cot was military narrow. Her shoes were lined beneath a cabinet. A garment bag hung from a pipe. On the small table, a ceramic mug held a toothbrush. "Does Priya know?" I asked. Priya Shah was our finance director and the closest thing Mara had to a second-in-command. She knows I sold the condo. She thinks I'm staying with a college friend. And the rest of us think you drive home every night after sending the last email. That is the arrangement. No, that's the story. Mara's chin lifted. It is temporary. Temporary has a toothbrush. That almost made her smile. Almost. Then she looked at the photograph beside the cot. Her father had one arm around her shoulders. They were standing in Northline's first office, a converted print shop with exposed brick and crooked windows. Mara looked about 19, laughing at something beyond the frame. "I only need 3 more months," she said. "If we land the Bellwether Hotels contract and keep the Armitage renewal, we stabilize. No one has to lose a job. No one has to know." "You think those are the only choices?" "They are the choices I can control." I knew that sentence. I had built half my adult life around versions of it. "What happens if someone finds out you're living here?" I asked. "The lease prohibits residential use. The landlord could terminate our agreement. So your solution is to hide in a room with no smoke detector." "There is a smoke detector." I looked up. A circular plastic shell hung from the ceiling without a battery. Mara followed my gaze and closed her eyes. "Fine," she said. "One flaw." "One?" "Owen, I'm not judging you. You are standing in my bedroom with your eyebrows doing a full performance review." My eyebrows are concerned. I don't need concern. What do you need? The question changed the air. She looked at me as if nobody had asked her that in a long time. Then she answered too quickly. "Privacy." I nodded, though every instinct in me objected. "I can give you privacy," I said. "I can't give you silence if this becomes dangerous." Her expression hardened again. "Are you threatening me?" "No, I'm setting the limit of the promise." "What promise?" "That I won't tell anyone tonight." She studied me. "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow you replace that smoke detector battery, and we discuss an actual plan." "We?" "Yes. There is no we. Then you have 24 hours to invent a safer pronoun." For the first time that night, Mara laughed. It was one quiet breath, surprised out of her. Then she covered it with a glare. "Get your charger, Mr. Carter. Yes, Ms. Ellison." I reached for the door. "Owen." I turned. Mara stood beside the cot, one hand resting on the folded blanket. Without the armor of the office around her, she looked less like my boss, and more like a woman who had been holding a building upright with her bare hands. "Please," she said. "Don't make me regret trusting you." I should have said something reassuring. Instead, because honesty had already ruined the evening, I said, "Please don't make me regret keeping this secret." The next morning, Mara walked into our 9 o'clock meeting wearing navy, carrying coffee, and looking as if she had slept 8 hours in a real bed instead of 6 on a cot between tax files. No one else noticed anything. That unsettled me more than if she had looked exhausted. She stood at the screen and took us through the Bellwether Hotels brief. Bellwether owned 12 historic properties across the Midwest and wanted a new campaign that made old buildings feel personal rather than dated. Winning the account would be the largest contract in Northline's history. "Guests don't book a room because the wallpaper is tasteful," Mara said. They book because they believe something meaningful might happen there. We are not selling beds. We are selling the feeling of arriving somewhere that remembers you. Her eyes met mine for half a second. I wondered whether she knew how cruelly appropriate that sounded. After the meeting, I returned to my desk and found a yellow sticky note on my keyboard. Smoke detector fixed. Pronoun discussion cancelled. I turned toward her glass office. Mara was reading an email, apparently unaware of me. Then she lifted her coffee without looking up and pointed one finger toward my monitor. Work. I smiled, despite myself. At noon, I brought 2 sandwiches into her office and placed one beside her laptop. I didn't order this, she said. Correct. I have lunch. She opened a desk drawer. Inside was a packet of crackers. That is evidence, not lunch. Owen, I bought the wrong sandwich. Turkey, avocado, no mustard. Tragic mistake. That is exactly what I order. What are the odds? Considering you organized the lunch order for the Armitage workshop last month? Hi. I sat in the chair across from her. Eat it, or I'll have to throw it away. And Northline's finances cannot survive that kind of waste. Her eyes narrowed. That was low. It was also effective. She unwrapped the sandwich. We ate without speaking for a minute. Through the glass, the office moved around us, designers leaning over screens, our receptionist laughing into her headset, Priya carrying a stack of folders toward the conference room. It felt strange to sit in Mara's office knowing her real life was hidden 30 yards away. You cannot keep bringing me food, she said. I can if I pretend it's accidental. You are a terrible liar. I'm an excellent liar. You're unusually suspicious. I manage creative people. Suspicion is a survival skill. I lowered my voice. Then use it on your own plan. Her hand stopped over the sandwich. I replaced the battery. That solves one problem. It solves the problem you identified. It solves the problem I could see in 5 minutes. Mara put the sandwich down. You promised privacy. I promised not to tell anyone. I did not promise to act like this is reasonable. She looked through the glass at our co-workers. 18 people have health insurance through this company, she said quietly. 4 have children. 1 is in the middle of cancer treatment. 2 are supporting parents. If I tell them how close we came to missing payroll, they will start looking for other jobs. The strongest people will leave first because they have options. Then the company actually collapses. You don't know that. I know people protect themselves. The certainty in her voice sounded older than 26. Did someone leave when your father died? I asked. She looked at me. That's not in the loan documents, I said. No. I waited. Mara's gaze dropped to the edge of the desk. Our operations director left 3 days after the funeral. He took 2 clients with him. My father's business partner demanded his investment back. Half the senior staff assumed I would sell. Everyone said they were sorry, and then they made the safest decision for themselves. I stayed. You had been here 11 weeks. I still had options. You also had a contract. I could have broken it. Why didn't you? The honest answer came before the careful one. Because you were standing in the conference room on the Monday after the funeral, telling us the company would continue, and your hands were shaking under the table. Her face changed. You saw that? I was sitting across from you. No one else said anything. Maybe they were trying to be kind. And you? I thought pretending not to notice would be cruel. Mara stared at me for a long moment. Then she wrapped the remaining half of her sandwich and placed it in the drawer, replacing the crackers. Thank you for lunch, she said. It was a dismissal, but not a cold one. That evening, everyone left by 7 except Mara and me. At 7:15, she appeared beside my desk. You can go home. I'm revising the bellwether positioning. You sent me the revised positioning 20 minutes ago. I'm revising the revision. You are staying because of me. I am staying because the phrase timeless hospitality for modern travelers is a crime, and I wrote it. She folded her arms. I am not a stray animal. I know. I do not need supervision. I know. Then stop looking at the records room every 6 minutes. I leaned back. I've only looked 4 times. 5. You were counting. Her mouth tightened to hide a smile. Go home, Owen. I shut my laptop. Then I stood, picked up my coat, and said, Have dinner with me. Her expression went still. Not a date, I added. A strategy meeting in a public place with edible food. I have work. You always have work. That is generally how employment functions. 45 minutes. There's a diner downstairs. We discuss Bellwether, your 3-month timeline, and options that don't involve sleeping beside archived invoices. She hesitated. Public place, I repeated. No pity. No secrets discussed where anyone can hear. Mara looked toward the elevator, then back at the dark office. 30 minutes, she said. The diner was nearly empty. We took a booth in the back, away from the windows. Mara ordered tomato soup and tea. I ordered coffee and a burger I was too nervous to taste. For the first 10 minutes, we discussed Bellwether. She challenged every phrase I suggested. I challenged her insistence that the campaign needed to sound elevated, which was advertising language for expensive but emotionally unavailable. Then I placed a blank page between us. 3 months, I said. What has to happen? Mara sighed. Bellwether signs. Armitage renews. We reduce the monthly office expense by 15%. I make the next settlement payment by October 1st. And if one of those fails, I accept Nathan Vale's offer. I knew the name. Vale Capital had invested in several small agencies, then combined them into one national firm. What does he want? 51% ownership. That's not an investment. That's a takeover. He would keep Northline open. With how many employees? She looked at her soup. How many, Mara? 10. We had 18. So you're living in a records room to avoid firing 9 people, and your backup plan fires 8. Yes. No. Her eyes flashed. No? No, as in that is not a plan we are accepting without exhausting every other option. There is still no we. I turned the blank page around and wrote at the top, options that are not Nathan Vale. Mara watched me. You really don't know when to stop, she said. I was engaged once. I have documentary evidence. That surprised a laugh out of her. You were engaged? 3 years. Her name was Claire. She was a pediatric resident, smarter than me, kinder than me, and eventually tired of being treated like a problem I could solve. Mara's expression softened. I'm sorry. It wasn't only my fault. But enough of it was. So this is what? Personal growth through unauthorized financial planning? This is me asking before I help. You already bought me lunch. I am imperfect. She looked at the page again. Then she took the pen from my hand. Fine, she said. Ask. The questions began with numbers and ended with things that had nothing to do with money. How much did Northline owe? Which clients paid late? Which expenses could be reduced without hurting the staff? Why had Mara chosen advertising when she had studied architecture? Why did she hate mustard? Why did she still keep her father's cracked leather briefcase even though the latch no longer closed? She answered the financial questions directly. The personal ones arrived in pieces. Her father had started Northline when Mara was 12. He used to bring her to the office on Saturdays and let her draw logos on rejected printouts. She had planned to design public buildings, but after her mother died during her 2nd year of college, she transferred closer to home and began helping with the company. By 24, she was directing client strategy. By 25, she was sitting beside her father in the hospital while he apologized for leaving her a difficult year. He knew about the loan? I asked. He knew it was risky. I don't think he understood how quickly everything would tighten after he was gone. Did he ask you to save the company? No. She traced one finger around the rim of her teacup. That would be easier to forgive. I understood what she meant. A direct request could be accepted or refused. Love created obligations without ever saying them aloud. We filled 3 pages with possibilities: renegotiate the lease, sublet the unused photo studio, require deposits from new clients, offer short-term campaign audits to generate quick cash, approach a local credit union instead of Vail Capital. None of it solved the entire problem. Together, it made the problem less like a wall. When we returned upstairs, Mara stopped beside the elevator. You should go home now. That sounds less like an order. It is still an order. Good night, Mara. It was the first time I had used her first name outside a group setting. She noticed. Good night, Owen. The elevator doors closed between us. For the next 2 weeks, we developed a routine neither of us admitted was a routine. I arrived early with 2 coffees. She complained that mine tasted like melted dessert and drank hers before it cooled. We worked normal hours with the team, then stayed late 3 or 4 nights a week on Bellwether and the financial plan. I never entered the records room without asking. Mara never again pretended the crackers in her desk were lunch. The office changed after 10. Without phones ringing and people moving through the halls, every sound became intimate. The click of her keyboard, the soft scrape of her chair, the tune she hummed when she forgot anyone could hear. The first time I mentioned the humming, she looked horrified. I do not hum. You do. What song? I don't know. It has 3 notes and 2 are concerned. That is not a song. It may be a warning signal. She threw a paperclip at me. I kept it in my desk. One Tuesday, we were reviewing photographs for Bellwether when Mara fell asleep at the conference table. Her cheek rested on her folded arm. A red pen remained in her hand. Without the tight line between her brows, she looked impossibly young. Not because 26 was young, but because responsibility had been aging her by the hour. I found the blanket from the lounge and draped it over her shoulders. Her eyes opened immediately. I'm awake. You were dreaming. I was thinking with my eyes closed. You said, Dad, the blue one. The color left her face. I'm sorry, I said. I shouldn't have repeated that. She sat up slowly and pulled the blanket around herself. We used to argue about blue. He thought every financial company needed navy because navy meant trust. I told him trust should not depend on a color. You were right. He used navy anyway. Then he was a client. That earned a tired smile. Mara looked toward the windows. Rain streaked the city lights into long silver lines. He died here, she said. I did not speak. In his office, a Saturday morning. I had gone downstairs to get coffee. When I came back, he was on their floor. Her fingers tightened in the blanket. People think I stay late because I'm ambitious. The truth is, for the first month after he died, I couldn't stay past sunset. Every quiet room sounded like that morning. Then why sleep here? Because eventually fear becomes less important than rent. The joke was too dry to be funny, and we both knew it. I sat in the chair beside her, leaving enough space that she could choose what happened next. She chose to lean back, not toward me, but not away either. I keep thinking, she said, if I had come back 5 minutes earlier. No. Her eyes turned to mine. You don't get to finish that sentence as if it is evidence, I said. You went for coffee. You did not cause his heart to stop. You don't know that 5 minutes wouldn't have mattered. No. And you don't know that it would have. She looked angry for a moment. Grief often did when somebody challenged its favorite lie. "My mother died when I was 19, she'd said. "My father died when I was 25. The company is the last place where both of them still feel real. That doesn't mean you have to be buried inside it with them." The words came out harder than I intended. Mara stood abruptly. The blanket slipped to the floor. "You think that's what I'm doing? I think you're sacrificing things faster than anyone can ask whether they should be sacrificed. And I think you are turning my life into a lesson from your failed engagement." That hit cleanly. She saw it, and regret flickered across her face. But I raised a hand. "You're right," I said. "Partly." "Owen, I said I would ask before helping. I forgot." I picked up my coat. At the elevator, she called my name. I turned. Mara stood at the end of the hallway with the blanket in her hands. "Your concern is not the problem," she said. "What is?" "The part of me that wants it." Neither of us moved. Then the elevator arrived, and I went home before I could mistake vulnerability for permission. The next morning she was entirely professional. So was I. For 4 days, we spoke only about work. No coffee waiting on her desk, no late dinners, no arguments about the records room. The distance was appropriate, careful, and miserable. On Friday afternoon, Bellwether's chief marketing officer called to move the final pitch up by 10 days. The conference room exploded into activity. Designers revised layouts. Priya rebuilt pricing. Our copy chief rewrote headlines until words stopped looking like language. Mara took control with her usual precision, but I could see fatigue at the edges of her decisions. At 9 that night, only 6 of us remained. At 10:30, Mara sent everyone home except me because I was presenting strategy with her. We stood before the screen, surrounded by discarded printouts. "Again," she said. I started the pitch. Bellwether's properties had history, I explained, but guests did not want to visit a museum. They wanted evidence that a place could hold the past without trapping them in it. Mara stopped me. "That line," she said. "Say it again." I did. Something moved across her face. "Too personal?" I asked. "No." She looked at the photograph of an old hotel lobby on the screen. "True. We revised the presentation until after midnight. When we finished, a snowstorm had covered the street and shut down the train line I used." "You can take the couch in the client lounge," Mara said, "and leave you in the records room? That is where I sleep." That sentence should not sound normal. It has become efficient. The building lights flickered. Then the entire floor went dark. The emergency lights came on a second later, washing the hallway in dim blue. Mara did not move. I heard her breathing change. "Mara, I'm fine." She was not. Her hand had closed around the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles looked pale. I crossed the room slowly. "Is it the dark?" "No." "Is it this office in the dark?" Her eyes shut. I stopped an arm's length away. "Can I touch you?" She nodded once. I placed my hands lightly on her upper arms. She was trembling. "Look at me," I said. The lights from the street gave me only the outline of her face, but after a moment her eyes opened. "Breathe in for 4. I know how to breathe. Excellent. Demonstrate." She made an annoyed sound, which was better than silence. We counted together. 4 in, 4 held, 6 out. By the 3rd breath, her grip loosened. "The morning my father died," she said, "the power was out on half the floor. A transformer had blown. I remember kneeling beside him in the dark, trying to unlock my phone with hands that wouldn't work. I kept my voice steady. You are not there now. I know. You are in the conference room. It is snowing. The presentation is finished. I'm holding your arms, and you are judging my breathing instructions. They are irritating. Good. Stay irritated. Her forehead lowered until it rested against my chest. I went still. Mara. Just for a minute. I moved my hands from her arms to her back, slowly enough that she could stop me. She did not. Instead, her fingers caught the front of my shirt. We stood in the blue darkness while snow pressed against the windows. I had imagined touching her before. I was not proud of it, but I had. In those private, foolish moments, she had been confident and certain, and I had known exactly what to do. The real Mara was shaking against me, and the only thing I wanted was to make the room feel safe. Her breathing steadied. Mine did not. When she lifted her face, we were too close. "Owen," she whispered. I could feel the word against my mouth. I wanted to kiss her. Every honest part of me wanted it. But she was my boss. She was exhausted, frightened, financially trapped, and relying on me to keep a secret that could damage her company. I stepped back. The hurt on her face lasted only a second before professionalism covered it. "You're right," she said. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. This isn't rejection. That makes it worse. The power returned with a hum. White light filled the room, exposing the distance between us. I searched for the right words. Mara saved me from finding them. "We pitch in 32 hours, she said. "You should sleep." She walked toward the records room and closed the door. I spent the night on the client lounge couch, staring at the ceiling and wondering whether doing the responsible thing was supposed to feel that much like cowardice. The bellwether pitch took place Saturday morning in the ballroom of their oldest Chicago property, a restored hotel built in 1912. Mara wore a dark green suit. I wore the same tie I had slept beside on the couch. We were good together. That was the simplest and most dangerous truth. I opened with strategy. She moved into the creative concept. When one executive challenged our research, Mara answered with data, then handed the conversation back to me without looking. I knew exactly where she wanted me to take it. When the chief marketing officer worried that the campaign romanticized the past, Mara used the line we had found in the dark. A meaningful place can hold history without trapping people in it. The room became quiet. Bellwether signed a 60-day pilot before we left the hotel. If the pilot performed, the full contract would follow. The initial deposit was enough to cover almost half of Northline's next settlement payment. The team celebrated Monday afternoon with cheap champagne and expensive cupcakes. Mara gave the credit to everyone except herself. I watched her stand beside the conference table while our designers cheered, and I understood why people followed her even when they feared her. She remembered who had built which slide. She praised Priya for restructuring the pricing. She thanked our junior designer by name for staying late on Friday. When she reached me, her voice remained formal. Owen found the central idea that made the room listen. Everyone applauded. I raised my glass. Mara's eyes held mine for one heartbeat too long. That night, I left at 6. It was the right thing to do. At 6:15, my phone rang. "Mara," I answered before the second ring. "Is something wrong?" "Why would something be wrong?" "You have never called me after ordering me to go home. I did not order you. You said you should leave before the trains get crowded," in your executive voice. A pause. "Are the trains crowded?" she asked. "Terribly. That's unfortunate." Another pause. I smiled into the phone. "Did you call to discuss public transportation?" "No." I waited. "I found your paperclip," she said. "What paperclip?" "The one I threw at you. It was on your desk." "You went through my desk?" "It was visible. I kept it for legal evidence." "Against me?" "For workplace hostility." She laughed softly. The sound traveled through the phone and settled somewhere under my ribs. "Mara," I said, "about Friday night." "I know why you stepped back. That doesn't mean I wanted to. I know that too." I leaned against the cold wall of the train platform. "We need boundaries," she said. "Yes." "You report to me." "Yes. And I am not currently in a position where my choices are uncomplicated." "No. Your agreement is becoming irritating. I'm demonstrating maturity. You should stop before you injure yourself." I smiled. "What boundary do you want?" "No staying late alone together unless it is necessary for work." "Okay. No food disguised as accidents. That seems extreme." "Owen. Okay. No touching." The word was quieter than the others. I looked down the tracks where train lights approached through the tunnel. "Okay," I said. "And no conversations that sound like this. That may be difficult to define." "We'll know." The train arrived, roaring between us. Before I boarded, I said, "For the record, boundaries only work if both people want them." Mara was silent. Then she said, "That is the problem." The call ended. For 2 weeks, we obeyed every rule. We were courteous, efficient, careful. We also became aware of each other in a way that made ordinary work feel dangerous. When Mara leaned over my desk to review a headline, I noticed the faint scent of her shampoo. When I spoke during meetings, she watched me with a concentration that had nothing to do with slides. We never stayed alone together, yet every room felt private when our eyes met. Then Nathan Vale arrived. He came on a Wednesday at 4, wearing a gray suit and the expression of a man who believed every problem became reasonable once a price was attached. Mara took him into her office. The blinds remained open, but their voices rose. "You have 10 days, he said. "The bank is not extending again. The bellwether pilot changes our forecast. A pilot is not a contract. It is revenue. It is hope." Mara stood behind her desk. "Then why are you here?" "Because your father was my friend, and I would rather buy Northline from you than watch the bank dismantle it. You would fire 8 people. I would save 10. You would save the client list." Vale glanced through the glass and saw me watching. His eyes stayed on me. "Owen Carter," he said. "Strong strategist. I would keep him." Mara followed his gaze. Something cold entered her expression. "You don't get to name the people I trade away." Vale picked up his coat. 10 days, Mara. After that, the offer drops." When he left, she closed her office blinds for the first time since I had joined Northline. That evening, Priya asked me to come to the finance room. She shut this door. "I don't know what you know," she said, "but Mara trusts you." The statement was not a question. "What do you need?" I asked. "Bellwether's deposit helps. It does not solve October. Armitage is threatening to delay renewal. If they do, Vale wins." "Why would Armitage delay?" "They claim our former operations director promised a lower rate before he left. We have no signed record." I thought of the man who had taken clients after Mara's father died. "Can we prove he was negotiating in bad faith?" "Maybe." "Old email archives. But Mara will not let me divert the team. She thinks the team will panic. She thinks leadership means being the last person allowed to panic." I looked toward the closed blinds. "What happens in 10 days? Either she signs with Vale, or the bank can seize the company's receivables. Payroll comes 4 days later." I felt the familiar machinery start inside me, the urge to take over, fix, carry, solve. This time I stopped. "What has Mara authorized you to ask me?" Priya's expression changed, almost approving. "Nothing," she said. I'm asking whether you can help me search the archive without violating client confidentiality. Yes, and whether you can convince her to tell the staff before they learn from a locked office door. That may be harder. Do it anyway. We found the missing emails at 2 in the morning on an old backup drive. The former operations director had not promised Armitage a lower rate. He had offered it without authority, then forwarded confidential Northline pricing to Vale Capital while negotiating a job for himself. It was enough for a lawyer to challenge the claim, and enough to buy time, but not enough to save the company by itself. Mara found Priya and me in the finance room. Her face went white when she saw the files. You searched without telling me. Priya authorized access, I said. You knew what this could expose? Yes. And you decided for me? No. I stood. We found information. You still decide what to do with it. She looked betrayed anyway. I trusted you with one secret, and I kept it. You turned it into a campaign. That is not fair, isn't it? You stayed late, you brought food, you made plans, you dug through archives, you needed to be the man who fixed it. The accusation struck the exact place Claire had once struck. For a second, I almost defended myself. Then I said, "Part of me did." Mara blinked. "I do know how to make help about my own worth," I continued, "but this is not only about you anymore. 18 people are 4 days from discovering their jobs were decided in a room they weren't allowed to enter." Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed hard. I was protecting them. You were protecting them from fear by giving them no choice. Silence filled the room. Priya stepped between us only with her voice. "Mara, tell them tomorrow." Mara looked at the evidence, then at me. "If I do, they may leave." "Yes," I said, "but if they stay, it will be because they chose to." The next morning, Mara called an all-hands meeting. She told the truth. Not every detail. She did not mention the cot. She did not have to. She explained the debt, the sale of her condo, Vale's offer, the threatened payroll, and the emails we had found. No one spoke at first. Then our receptionist asked, "Why didn't you trust us?" Mara's composure broke. "I thought protecting you meant carrying it." Priya shook her head. "That is not protection. That is isolation." The team did not perform a miracle. 2 employees admitted they needed to start looking for safer work. No one blamed them. But the others stayed. The designers agreed to move out of the unused studio so it could be sublet. 3 clients accepted discounted annual prepayment. Bellwether, after seeing the first campaign results, converted the pilot early. Most importantly, Armitage withdrew its dispute when our lawyer presented the emails. Northline made payroll with 11 hours to spare. Mara moved out of the records room that weekend. I helped carry her suitcases to a small, furnished apartment 3 blocks from the office. Priya came too, which mattered. Nothing about the move belonged only to Mara and me anymore. At the door, after Priya left, Mara handed me a folded sheet of paper. It was my transfer approval. I would report to Priya as head of strategy, not to Mara. "I requested it before the all-hands meeting," she said. "Not because I expect anything." "What do you expect?" "That depends." "On what?" She looked at me with no glass office, no title, and no secret between us. "On whether you still want to kiss me when I'm not asking you to save anything." I stepped closer. "Can I?" "Yes." Our first kiss was quiet, careful, and overdue. 6 months later, Northline was profitable. Mara rented a real apartment with windows that faced the lake. She still stayed late sometimes, but never because she had nowhere to go. On our first anniversary, I found the old paperclip framed on her desk. Beneath it, she had written, "Evidence of workplace hostility." I added a second note. Best decision I never made for you. She read it, took my hand, and led me toward the elevator at 6 o'clock. The office could wait. So tell me, if you discovered someone you cared about was hiding a life-changing secret, would you protect their privacy or push them to accept help? Share your answer in the comments, and subscribe for more stories about love that begins when people finally stop pretending they are fine.